What up? Welcome into Fantasy Focus. Daniel Dopp and Field Yates. We are talking about wide receivers today. In fact, Field, we're going to make this a fun show. We're talking about sleepers and breakouts, guys that have potential, guys that have upside that we want to see take the next step. I'm excited to talk about some breakouts here, but I just want to say this. I just want to know, why do you always do this? Why when we do breakouts, why do you always pick a rookie wide receiver?
Well, because I make the rules, gang. You know,
that's what it is.
One of my all-time favorite reels, I guess it's a reel too, but one of my all-time favorite clips is there's like a sizzle reel that accompanies Mel Kiper, which happens a lot during like March, April, and May, before and right after the draft, right? And we almost always use it on any of our content. And one of it just like the best of Mel. And I think it was a clip where I believe John Gruden was still on the broadcast. Boomer was hosting it, and it's like, who says they're talking about taking a running back in the first round? And Boomer kind of like looks inquisitively to the set and goes like, you know, whoever made the rule that you can't take a running back in the first round? And Mel Kiper Jr. just matter-of-factly goes, me. And
yeah.
So if I want to make a rookie receiver a breakout, I'm going to do it. You know why? Because I decided to.
That's right. I love it. I love that. All right. I'm going to start with mine then, and then we will get into yours, Field. My breakout for 2024 at the wide receiver position, I want to speak this one into existence. George Pickens. Obviously, Deontay Johnson has moved on from this Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiving core, now in Carolina. Last year, he led the league with 18.1 yards per reception. George Pickens is a big play waiting to happen. And being able to have him as the de facto #1 wide receiver, I am nervous about picking a wide receiver in an Arthur Smith-led offense. I want to say that right now. But George Pickens with either Russell Wilson or if Justin Fields can eventually get under center. We watched what he was able to do once he established chemistry with DJ Moore. I love being able to see George Pickens take the next step because this is a guy that on any given week can absolutely win you a fantasy week with the huge ceiling that he has with those big plays. So for me, I love what Pickens can be. I understand that he was playing as a wide receiver 2 behind Deontay Johnson. I understand there was some volatility. You mentioned it before, Field. Sometimes you want consistency. This is a year I need to see consistency from George Pickens as he takes the step to becoming a true wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I guess so. I think there's a chance for a breakout. He's so talented, that much we know. I think the question with George Pickens is the departure of Deontay Johnson mean the consistency that you're referring to in terms of volume, right? Because, you know, so much of our coverage and so much of so many leagues you and I play in is PPR scoring, right? He was tied for 50th in catches last season was George Pickens, 55-0. And if I'm looking at it, I see 2 games last season with 10 or more targets and a whole bunch of games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I think he barely played in that. Maybe he didn't play that much in that. Oh, that last game was super rainy. That was the final week 17 game. I'm looking at 10 games with 6 or fewer targets from George Pickens. So, as I've talked about with Mike in some spirited conversations recently, you can't use the past to solely pin down your analysis for the future. But for Pickens, I do think the style of play of his game does lend itself to fewer targets and more big plays. So I am optimistic about Pickens, not enough so that I would have him as my breakout pick.
Would you then put him in that same range as like I don't know if this is the right way to say this, but what you're describing to me sounds like Brandon Ayuk, right? A guy that I really like, didn't get enough targets last year, but when he does get targets, I think he is a very good down the field wide receiver. You look at what he did last year, 4 for 127 and a touchdown in week 2, 6 for 130 and a touchdown in week 5. He had 4 for 195 and 2 touchdowns in week 16 and 7 for 131 in week 17 against Seattle. A lot of it is that big play upside, right? But it's being able to, as you said, make sure that we can establish that he's getting double-digit targets. I did not see that last year from Drake London. There's a part of me that hopes that the Steelers recognize what they have in George Pickens and they don't allow the same thing that happened to Drake London while Arthur Smith was there to make sure it doesn't happen to George Pickens as well. So it's a little bit of me trying to speak it into existence. I understand all the things that you're talking about, Field. Totally get it. I'm hoping to be able to see this kid take a step this year with a new quarterback. All right.
So just on the comparison to Ayuk is just like Ayuk is in like a souped up version. Like I think Ayuk's a better
Yes,
player.
much
I
better
think
player.
Ayuk is a better quarterback, better offense, more touchdown upside for the various reasons. But I hear you in terms, Ayuk 75 catches last year's. So it's not like he had 112 or something like that.
Correct.
My breakout player is Marvin Harrison Jr. That's right, Mike
Ooh,
Clay, a rookie
okay.
breakout player. Take that. You don't like it? I don't know
Deal
what to
with it.
say, but yeah, deal with it. That's right. Daniel, we can spin this a million different ways, and someone could have some super deep, thoughtful analysis of Marvin Harrison Jr. Or you can just say this: this is an unbelievable prospect. I'll spare you guys some sort of term like transcendent or generational or one of a kind, right? But he's awesome. Going to an excellent situation. Excellent. Kyler Murray is a very good quarterback. If you want to debate me about how great he is, we'll do it after the show. I don't want to do that right now. He's very good.
He's good.
I mean, you think good. Okay, whatever. He's at least good. Okay. I think Kyler Murray is more than competent enough to get the ball to the receiver that needs to get the football to, because he's done it before. We saw it with DeAndre Hopkins. Trey McBride, really good player. He's the only other person in this offense that I can state unequivocally right now for Arizona. That guy is going to be a consistent factor in the passing game. I do like Michael Wilson. We'll talk about him at a later time for sure.
Yep.
The torture chamber, fun, solid player. It's the Marvin Harrison Jr. show. He should challenge for 170 targets. That's 10 per game the first season of his career, which is this year. Really good player, really good, a good enough quarterback for sure. And while this team, I do think, will be frisky again defensively, I think just based off of their overall talent pool relative to other teams, enough favorable game scripts. So I'm in on Marvin Harrison Jr. as a top 10 wide receiver, and I don't think it's that crazy at all.
No, I don't think it's crazy either, Field. Right out the gate, there's a lot of reason to be able to believe that he's going to be that guy within this offense. And if Kyler Murray wasn't back and fully healthy, maybe I would have him a little farther down my list. But seeing Kyler back, we know that he knows how to be able to target his wide receiver ones. We watched it happen with Hollywood Brown when Nuke was hurt. We watched it happen with DeAndre Hopkins once he came back. So we should be force feeding Marvin Harrison Jr. here for this one. All right.
Can we do that? Do that.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm very in on doing that. All right, let's talk about a couple of sleepers. I'm going to let you pick one first, and then I also got a sleeper that I want to talk about. If you're going to grab one guy a little bit later on in the draft, who are you going at the wide receiver position?
Yeah, so again, rookies are allowed, Mike Clay. So mine's Ladd McConkey. Chargers wide receiver, second-round pick, 34th overall. Look at the depth chart right now. The wide receivers, besides Ladd McConkey, that figured to have maybe some level of a role, Josh Palmer feels like the best bet. Yep. DJ Chark, Quentin Johnston. I just don't think any of those guys is a credible threat to seize a number one wide receiver role in this offense, not for fantasy, but in this offense, and make Ladd McConkey unimportant. People keep talking about how, the Chargers are going to run the football a whole lot more. Correct. The run heaviest offense in the entire NFL, Daniel, will run the football 50% of the time, right? 50% of the plays. You play 75 a game. You might throw the ball 30 times a game, no problem. You do the math on that. That's Justin Herbert's going to have 500 plus passing attempts this season. If Ladd McConkey out of the chutes commands a 17 to 22% target share, best route runner on the team, super fast. It's got to be, he caught the ball much better last year than he did in 2022. I know they might run the football a decent amount, but this team also might not be great, Daniel. And if they have to play from behind, it's going to be, I think, pretty frequently Ladd McConkey with these 7 to 12 target games. And that's good enough for him to be a value based off where he's going.
Yeah. And I wonder, Field, how much of this, obviously you were able to really study Ladd through your draft process. How much of this is about Ladd as a prospect in the situation that he fell in versus the opportunity that seems like it's there for the taking because you just don't love the Josh Palmer and the Quentin Johnston and the DJ Chark?
Ooh, I'm going to go with, I'm always going to defer to the player and the strength. So I'm going 58% Ladd McConkey's ability and 42% the situation, Daniel.
But the situation certainly lends itself to Ladd right now.
Oh, totally. I mean, the other thing about what we do with rookies is shiny object syndrome. I really, really loved Ladd McConkey in the pre-draft process. If you listen to our content, you knew that he was one of my guys. So I was happy to see him land at a particularly favorable fantasy spot. But I also feel like I might have been a sucker if Lad entered, like if he had been, I don't know, if he'd gone to San Francisco like in the second round and they already had Ayuk and Debo and Ricky Pearsall, I might still find a way to make him fantasy relevant. But it's a great spot for him. I probably lean, Daniel, like 42% is not the majority in this scenario, but it's a
Yeah.
lot higher than where I put a lot of situations in general for rookies.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think he is a situation I would more buy into Lad McConkey right now, being a rookie. When
Yeah.
you're talking about that shiny object syndrome, than I would someone like Keon Coleman for me personally.
Yep.
I like Keon, but I don't think that he is going to see nearly as much volume in that Bills offense as Lad McConkey could in this Chargers offense with Justin Herbert. All right. My sleeper for this year, Field, is Jaden Reed. He's going way too late in drafts for me. Now, I want to acknowledge the Packers have a ton of mouths to feed. This is part of the problem that I recognize also everyone else realizes. Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. Romeo Doubs wasn't a scrub last year. Dontavian Wicks looked really nice last year as well. People like him again. You got both of those tight ends. And you just brought in Josh Jacobs for what it's worth to be able to be your running back. So Jordan Love has a lot of options at his disposal within this offense, but Jaden Reed is my favorite one by far. In part because you look at what he did the second half of the season in his rookie year. Field, from weeks 10 through weeks 18, he had one game with fewer than 15 fantasy points. One game with fewer than 15. 19.4 in week 10, 19.2 in week 11, 15 in week 12, 5.6 in week 13, and then 20.5, 17.2, 26.9, and 15.2. Like, you're talking to me about,
he just kept scoring touchdowns, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He kept finding ways to get in the end zone. And we were wondering what Jordan Love was going to look like, right? Coming into the season, is Jordan Love going to be the guy? Is he really legit? How is this offense going to look with him under center? He looked really good.
It's okay to cry right now. It's okay to cry right now as a Lions fan.
It's okay. It's all right. Like, Lions are still real good, but Jordan Love looked nice. Like, we thought beginning of the season it wasn't going to last the way that it did. And understanding that he comes on throughout the rookie season the way that he does, especially towards the tail end of it when Christian Watson is hurt, that's the situation where you need that rookie wide receiver to step up. The opposite of what it felt like Quentin Johnston did last year for the Chargers when there was an opportunity made available to him. This is one of those spots where Jaden Reed just took over as a playmaker within this Packers offense. He gave me shades of Amon-Ra St. Brown at the tail end of his rookie year. I want to see him continue to do it here in his sophomore year. Big question for me, Field, and I'm sure a lot of people are just asking, is how is he going to be able to get the volume he needs to get with all of the other options in that offense?
Yeah, that's exactly where I come back to, Daniel, is remember last season, during the preseason, we all kind of kept asking, and this actually has happened for 2 years now, like which Chiefs receiver is going to emerge with no Tyreek Hill? And it was like, well, it could be Sky Moore. Maybe it's Juju, kind of old, reliable. Perhaps Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who played all the snaps, will finally break out. That didn't happen. Maybe it'll be
Tony still has a bunch of talent.
Tony, right. And so it was kind of like, it was like you had to kind of plant your flag on one. In the case of the Chiefs wide receivers, it didn't exactly work out on any of them, right?
Rashee Rice was the only one.
If you were a Rashee Rice guy this past season. So I'm leery that like we might have one of those situations with the Packers where there's a lot to like about a lot of these guys. Like, I think Christian Watson's a real player. Sorry. Jaden Reed, obviously we both like. Dontavian Wicks showed a lot of promise. Romeo Doubs is like, that's a legit football player too, right? So you've got 4 separate options in an offense that also has 2 capable pass catching tight ends and wants to run the football a decent amount, right? So it's there's so many guys that I'll just say this. If you're right on Jaden Reed, and I'm not here to tell you you're wrong, but if you're right, Daniel, that's a heck of a call because the circumstances make this one really tricky to suss out.
Yeah. I look at this situation and I say to myself, I see skill. Like, this guy is talented, right? When he's got the football in his hands. Part of the reason why I feel going this route is because we have not seen consistency from Christian Watson in the first couple of years of his NFL career. We know
Sure.
that is supposed to happen more this year with the medical staff and his hamstring. They feel like they have found some issues with him that they can help rectify, right? Help him keep on the field more often this year. So we'll see how much that impacts Jaden Reed. But I think this kid is too good to be able to keep off the field. And with what I saw from the eye test, I think you got to put the ball in his hands a bunch. So
All right,
that
love
is
it.
my sleeper. We're going to see how that one works out. But Field, we have a lot more wide receiver and just fantasy conversation coming up very soon. July 29th, next Monday, we are daily for Fantasy Focus. Me, you, Mike Clay, Stefania Bell, bringing you all the fantasy content you need. Until then, continue to follow us on social media. I'm at Daniel Dopp. He is at Field Yates. We love you guys. Don't forget to love each other. We'll see you soon.